Hi everyone, it's me, Sandy Cruz of Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. For years now, I've been bringing to you conversations about wellness from incredible guests from all over the world. Discover a fresh take on healthy living for midlife and beyond, one that embraces balance and reason without letting only science dictate every aspect of our wellness. Join me and my guests as we explore ways that we can age gracefully with in-depth conversations about the thyroid, about hormones, and other alternative wellness options for you and your family. True wellness nurtures a healthy body, mind, spirit, and soul. And we cover all of these essential aspects to help you live a balanced, joyful life. Be sure to follow my show, rate it, review it, and share it. Always remember, my friends, balanced living works. Hi everyone, welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today with me for a third time, I have a return guest. Her name is Maureen St Germain. I've had her on my show, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. I've had her on my show before to talk about understanding your higher self. That was episode 194. We also touched on the Akashic records. I also had her on my show to talk about the fifth dimension. That was episode 251. So go and listen to those two episodes. This week, we are talking about your guides, your spirit guides, your angel guides. Who are these guides? And the reason I wanted to have a show about this is because you see a growing number of Instagram reels and TikToks that talk about our guides. But a lot of times you're like, who are these guides? How do I tap into these guides? You're going to hear all about it on today's show. I do find it interesting when you go on Instagram and you see somebody who has, maybe 1,000 followers, and then the following week they've got 20,000 followers. I want to bring light to this because I want to help desensitize our world to this notion that if you have a lot of followers, you must be smart, you must be an expert, you must be popular. I would like to desensitize the world to this. And the reason I'm saying that is I have been on the Instagram platform for 8 years now. I started back when I was in nutrition school in college, and then I moved more to integrative health topics, perimenopause, menopause, hormones. I started moving into body, mind, spirit, and soul. Actually, I think I started with that right off the bat. I started my podcast 5 years later, and one would look at me and go, wait a minute, you only have like 6,700 followers on Instagram. And 15,200 I think I'm at on TikTok. Then on Facebook, I think I'm at about 9,000. So my podcast has over 1.3 million downloads in the last 5 years. I think that's pretty great. I'm pretty happy with all of this. I do nothing to have any companies try and boost my follows. So I want to make that clear to everybody. I'm not saying I'll never do it. Maybe I will if I find a company that does it authentically with integrity and honesty. But most of the time they use some bots. And anyway, I wanted to bring this to light because I don't choose my podcast guests based on their followers. I choose them based on if I resonate with the topic, if I resonate with them, and if I feel we could have a great conversation to bring something of value to my audience. I wanted to bring this up because I'd like the world to change just in a better, more authentic way with integrity. That's why. On that note, when you do follow me, when you do share my podcast, when you do rate and review my podcast, you could do that on Apple and on Spotify. That helps me to keep getting incredible guests because of this reason. I know it's not great because I think I have a pretty good show. And I think I've shown you guys that I come out every single week to do my best to provide free content for you. So follow me because you like me, because you support me, because you support my show and what I'm trying to achieve in this world of wellness. Follow me for those reasons and share and like and comment on my content to help my content to kind of get caught up in that algorithm to help boost it naturally. So I am Sandy K Nutrition everywhere. So you can find me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I'm also a writer, so I provide a lot of free content through short essays that are explorative essays to help you explore your own wellness. I don't ever use the word expert anymore. Unless I say it by mistake, I have found too much of a loss of integrity with this one word. So I've stopped saying it. So I ain't going to say it anymore, my friends, unless I say it by mistake. And the reason I'm not going to is because I've even been invited and called into groups to become a so-called expert by title, so long as I paid for it. And it can be big money. I found out a lot of interesting things that give me an ick feeling in this industry of wellness that have transpired over the last 8 years. People who were podcasters who created content because they were passionate. Maybe they had the hero's journey like I do. But now it's all about the money, my friends. So this is why I encourage resonance. I encourage you not to go outside for all the answers. Maybe listen to this, listen to that here and there, and then go back and do your own research if it makes sense for you and your wellness. Also, tap into your own intuition. What actually feels good in your body. Don't just go and listen to this doc or that doctor, or this person because they have 1 million followers. If they give you an ick feeling, there's a reason for that ick feeling. And that's what I really try to educate on in my writing, in my content, in everything I do. We got to turn back into ourselves to see if these things make sense to us. Because unfortunately, I used to be in this world of holistic health, whole, clean, pure, with integrity. My friends, it's not like that anymore. It's just not. And unfortunately, it's just a different branch from the same tree of big pharma, Western medicine, where unfortunately greed, money, power, ego all take a forefront. I've written about this in my Substack. You can go and follow me on my Substack. It's sandycruz.substack.com. It will be in the show notes. Please don't forget to engage with my content anywhere you are, just to help us little folk still remain seen. And now let's cut on through to this amazing interview with Maureen St Germain. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today with me, I have one of my favorite return guests, Maureen St Germain. Maureen has over 25 years of experience in the area of mystical and sacred traditions. Known as the Practical Mystic, she is a prolific teacher and facilitator of spiritual knowledge for contemporary life. As an internationally acclaimed Ascension teacher, Maureen has been granted access to a dimension that has been closed to most of humanity for eons and is a direct channel to Source. She is the founder of St. Germain Mysteries School and Akashic Records International. Her annual program, the Ascension Institute, is a highly sought after immersion training for evolving humans. And I think we're in that era right now, Maureen. I think, humanity's changing. So this is all very timely. She was on my podcast before, episodes 194 and 251. And today we will be discussing communicating with our guides. We hear this a lot. And I think the biggest miss with social media is that we get these 30-second clips. And so I hope that everybody who's listening will listen to this entire podcast because we're going to try and give as much information as we can in this approximate 1 hour. We're going to talk about angel guides, spirit animals, dragons, dragon energy, and how different ones will show up at different times and what they mean. So the reason this conversation is so important is, on social media, you're going to get this 30-second clip that will give you just a little snippet of, who these angel guides are. But everyone's like, okay, well, how do I access my angel guides? How do I access my spirit guides? Well, Maureen is here to talk to us and give us as much information. Then you can go and join one of her programs, get one of her books because she's written many. And I'm just so happy to have you back again, Maureen. So with that, welcome back.
Thank you. It's so fun to talk to you and to be your guest. And for those of you who are just tuning in, we are so simpatico that we talked for half an hour before we could even get started on our interview. So we're warmed up already.
Yeah, and I always like that. I'm not sure about you, Maureen, but I've been on the receiving end where somebody like whoever the host is, they don't talk to you at all. And then you're like, okay, I gotta be on. And then it takes time to warm up. But we've definitely got a synergy going since we've recorded before. We know each other, I think, relatively well as we can through Zoom now 3 times. So but, people who are listening for the first time, they might not know your story. So I think it's always important to start with that.
Okay, so let me see if I can give you the Cliff Notes version. I was one of 6 children born on a farm. I was the middle child. I was picked on by my siblings and very sensitive. In hindsight, I could see my emotional body was bigger than 4 city blocks. And I was also, as a child, aware that I was being watched. And I was watched by both benevolent and non-benevolent beings. And I was never afraid. I just was aware that they were watching me. Somebody was watching me. As a young adult, I grew up Catholic. As a young adult, I pursued more spiritual knowledge and gradually gravitated towards spirituality and raised my children in the awareness of ascended masters and the archangels. I worked in the corporate world for a long time. I put my sons through college, and that took a lot of resources. In America, college is not free. I went through a lot with learning to manifest and becoming a good manifester. And my heart's desire was to be of service to humanity. And so as time went on, I took a lot of coursework and got certified in one that I was particularly enchanted with, and that was the Merkaba teaching. And from there, my guides would come in more and more. And eventually, I was channeling my own information or information from spirit. And in the process, I wrote 7 books. And the one that you may have heard of first was the Beyond the Flower of Life, which was based on, how can you improve your meditation practices? And it's useful whether you're a meditator of any kind, not just the Merkaba. And then that catapulted me into a bigger awareness of 5D and what was going on. And I was actually the first author to publish information about fifth dimension. And I spent 7 years writing that book. So I was really like at the front of that curve.
Well, I think that today's conversation is an interesting one to many. I know that some people kind of look at you like when you mention the 5D, you can see that all of a sudden they get spacey. They're like, what are you talking about? Right?
Joe headlights, right?
Yeah, yeah. But when you talk about your angel guides, I think probably of all these different guides, many people know or have heard of, or see that people talk about their angel guides. And the biggest thing is, I know because I live in this world of in between. And I live in a world where some are so science and then some are way over on the other end of the spectrum. And I'm kind of in the middle. And I actually was lecturing once, Maureen, and somebody, she was a doctor. She said to me, she turned around, she goes, I really like you, but I really don't understand any of this woo. It's all woo woo. So, what do you say to individuals who say it's too out there, too woo, too esoteric for me to understand?
It doesn't take much detective work to find medical doctors who have understood the spiritual benefits of connecting with their inner wisdom and their inner guidance. Many doctors will tell you that they're just following science, but they're really following their intuition. And what I have discovered is there's many doctors who are now willing to publish and say their story and how they came to a bigger spiritual connection. What we need to understand is modern medicine has only been around for maybe a century, and that it came from a strong desire for a certain individual to create medicine from oil derivatives and drive people into dependency upon these products. Humans are now becoming aware that they've been set up in this way and that they can quite possibly unhook from some of the physical disabilities and also the dependence on certain drugs. And so that's putting the power back in the hands of the people. Many doctors, their arms are tied because they are paid low wages at the clinic that they work at, and their bigger money comes from how many vaccines they recommend or how many of something else they do. And so it takes a certain amount of integrity to step away from that and say, we're not doing that anymore. And there are quite a few doctors who have left the medical field and have either been stripped of their license or talking about things that are so strongly not pro AMA that they've been ostracized and have chosen to walk away. So much so that it's a crisis in America. People who are relying on medicine in the traditional sense are finding that they have to go great distances or wait long periods of time just to get in to see someone. So it's a very big problem that some doctors don't see the wisdom of their inner guidance. But I believe that every one of those doctors that are all science, as you have used that term, are having experiences in their life that are so strong and so powerfully coincidental that they're looking at this and saying, there's too many, there's too much likelihood that something else is going on, and I need to look deeper. You know, there's a well-known psychiatrist, Shakuntali Modi, who is a MD psychotherapist. She is Indian by heritage. In spite of that, she didn't believe in reincarnation, very straight-laced medical, grew up in America. And she was looking for one modality that she could use on her clients that would be universal and help with the clients. And she couldn't find one thing, but she did find that hypnotherapy, taking a person back to the psychosis or when that event that started the psychosis occurred, they could heal from that. So that was affecting about 50% of her patients, which was a pretty good number considering what she was dealing with. But one day, one of her clients, when she asked him to go back in hypnotherapy to when this issue started, he went back to a past life, blew her out of the water. She was not expecting that. And she writes in her books, I was surprised at the amount of literature on reincarnation that I had completely missed. And then she went on to write a couple of other books after that. And one of them is called Memories of God and Creation, where she actually regresses people back to their first formation in a body. And the stories are remarkably similar, whether they're Islam or Muslim or Christian or Jewish, agnostic. It's astounding. And this kind of proves the point that humans aren't just physical beings, we're spiritual beings. And once we recognize that our spirituality is not more important, it's an equal part to who we are. And ignoring half of who we are is like trying to hang wallpaper with one arm. It's silly. It doesn't make any sense. One of the things that I know, and this is really important for people to realize, I don't let spirituality rule my life, but I don't let the physical reality rule my life either. And that's what I would like to see for everyone, to have the ability to balance that.
I love that. And you know what, Maureen, I think that this is, and I say this all the time, I actually have a t-shirt that I made, almost 5 years ago. It was just after I started this podcast. And it says right on it, it's all about the balance. And I usually wear that in the summer when I'm recording because it's too cold over here now. I'm not going to wear a t-shirt. But I think in life, when we achieve balance in as many areas, body, mind, spirit, soul, so what we're putting in our body, that we're moving our body, that we have some sort of a spiritual practice. We have, we're eating whole, real foods. And it doesn't matter. It's not about, being keto or being low carb. That's not what it's about. It's about feeling good in your body when you have a balanced life. And I will say this too, and this is so cool, it's very old, this documentary. I mean, it certainly didn't have a billion-dollar budget or anything, but I watched it a few times. I actually bought it. It's called Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds. Have you seen that, Maureen?
No, but it sounds like I need to.
Okay, okay, this is your sign because you talked about it. You talked about how, with the scientific advancements we've made, many of us have gone away from that power that we have within us and being able to tap into these resources that are ours, that come to us internally within us. And it's just, and so that documentary, and there's another one, it's called It's Time. It's newer. It was just released. These two really kind of speak to what you were just saying about how that practice, I know, and I've said this many times, Maureen, because people of the side, they sometimes they look at you like, I don't get you. I don't understand you. And I'm like, well, I don't have to prove it because I know it's there and I know it helps me get through the more difficult times in life. It really does. Or it helps me make difficult decisions. What do you think of that?
Well, it's lovely that you bring this side up because a lot of people will, say that kind of thing. I don't understand it. It makes no sense, and they dismiss it. But the challenge is, okay, so you don't believe it, you don't trust it, whatever. Do it. Just try it. Call in your dragons, call in your angels, call in the ascended masters, ask for their help, and see what happens. And then you can even say, give me a sign that's irrefutable. Let me see something that is so real that it's irrefutable. They still might resist, but today, in today's world, there's so much light being broadcast to us to level up and to let go of our old ways of operating, that I like to joke around and say everybody's going to be 5D, whether you're ready or not. So you may as well, take advantage and really begin to operate that way. And operating in a 5D way is not difficult. It is simply an understanding of a different way of operating. And I'm going to explain that. We all know that we're in 3D, and 3D has this quality, this vibrational quality of judgment and polarity, good, bad, right, wrong, like that. And, take somebody driving on the freeway. There's good drivers and there's not good drivers. There's bad drivers. However, in 5D, the opportunity to do something that is harmful or hurtful doesn't exist. So we tend to, it doesn't occur to us. It's kind of like my son opening the refrigerator and saying, Mom, there's nothing here for me. And I take him through a process. Okay, what about the tea? What about the juice? Did you ask about water? Oh no, water. Oh, it's so plain. So what happens is we don't miss those things that we got used to doing that weren't good for us. And we can get a boost by calling in our angels. And the cool thing is you don't have to take my word for it. All you need to do is to say, okay, this lady says dragons will help me with my drive. And there's a story of a man who was the husband of a woman that I was working with. And he heard us talking all the time about the dragons. And he had this horrible New England commute. And if you've ever driven in Vermont, the roads are small, the icy roads in the wintertime. People jump into traffic and out of traffic, and it's just crazy. And even though he loved his job, he hated the commute. So one day he said, okay, fine, I'm going to ask these dragons that they keep talking about to do the driving. And that's what Maureen says, let the dragons do the driving. And he said, people let him in. There wasn't anybody who cut him off. It was literally like he had a motorcade escort of dragons. And he said, from now on, I'm driving with the dragons. That is proof positive for that one person. So I say to you, okay, there's angels. How do you know what your angels are? Well, you start out with your guardian angel and you ask your guardian angel to help you. One of the really fun ways to work with your angels is to tell them, I'm not going to set my alarm, but I need to get up by 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., whatever the time is that you would like to get up. And do it on a day that you don't have to go to work, so you're not sweating bullets and waking up every hour trying to figure out if it's time to get up. Instead, just do it. Say, okay, I'm going to sleep in, but I would like my angels to get me out of bed at 9 o'clock. And you would be surprised. 5 minutes till 9, you're wide awake, wondering, I thought I was going to sleep in. Oh, I asked the dragons to wake me up so I wouldn't throw away my day. Or the angels. Now, there are 7 archangels. And one of the ways that you can call them in is to call them by name. So there's a couple of guided meditations on my app. This is a phone app for either Android or iPhones, and it's called Illuminate, Illuminate, Illuminate. And it's a cute little purple box with a gold arrow. In the guided meditations, I tell you about each of the 7 primary archangels that are related to the 7 primary rays of color. And I tell a little bit about each of them. And then I say a little invocation like, Archangel Michael, help me align with my divine purpose. And I leave a space for you to repeat after me. So it's a wonderful way to learn about the angels and at the same time make your own statement that's personalized to you as part of your connection and your buildup, so that you're not really working to memorize who's who. You're simply listening to a recording and repeating after me in a way that it becomes second nature. So that's a wonderful way to get started. And then there's lots of resources on who's who in I'll call it the pantheon of ascended masters. And the difference between an ascended master, an angel, and a dragon might be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So ascended masters are generally beings who have lived on the earth, experienced earth many lifetimes, and reached a place of mastery. Now, there are a few exceptions. There are some masters that have never lived on earth, but they've lived in other planets and earned their ascension that way. The ascended masters have come back to earth to assist earth's shifting. So they're like our elder brothers and sisters. You might call them the coaches to help us get where we want to go. They've been there, they've done that, and they can really show us the way.
Can they be relatives, Maureen? Can they be relatives?
Yes. If you have a family member that has passed on and they come back without you inquiring, very often they've come back to help you. If you're calling them in, you might be calling in their spirit energy, which is real, but it isn't necessarily ascended, if that makes sense. It's like the personality type.
Can sorry, I have a question because I have to ask you this because I know people would find it interesting. When one of my children was going away to school, I was worried. They were moving away for the first time. And there at school, there's this graffiti place where all the students, every night it's like a whole thing where every night the students can go and they can spray paint and they're allowed to graffiti, but the rule is it's done at night only. So my husband and I took my daughter to school, and on that spot was the name of my aunt who passed away, who was like a second mom to me when I was a very young child. And it is the rarest name you have ever seen. And it's my daughter's middle name. We named her after her. So, and it was us leaving her at school. So I actually took a picture of it. I'm like, oh my God. And I said to my husband, I go, is this even real? How can this be that this name is here? Who spray painted this name? Like, it's just so rare. I'm not going to reveal that here, the name, but I can tell you it's like, I never in my life met another person with this name. So to me, I took that as somehow my aunt was saying, don't worry, she's going to be okay. I'm going to be
Right.
looking
I've got you
after her.
covered. Mhm.
Yes.
Totally. Absolutely.
Anyway,
And
so who is that? That's my aunt. Is she an ascended master? Like, who is she?
well, let me tell you, this is kind of an aside, but there are many young people and adults too that have come in who are already ascended and they're part of the transformation and they're here to make sure humanity makes it. So your aunt may already have been an ascended master and only she would know, or maybe you would know it from knowing her. But what I will say is in the Akashic records, when I'm working with people, many times someone is asking about, am I going to ascend in this lifetime? And the record keepers will say, no, you don't need to. You already did that once. You're part of the reconnaissance mission.
Oh, which is?
Well, Earth is at a tipping point, we will say. And what that means is most humans are choosing to step into a higher level of expression. Some humans have never been taught what the qualities of integrity and honesty mean or how they are valued. So they need to learn that. And some learn it very quickly and some don't. But what happens is if you've achieved mastery, but you are concerned about humans succeeding in their path of mastery, you might come back as a person willing to help. And you might not remember how hard it was to be in a human body. So you take on some human foibles because you wouldn't, it'd be like having a trust fund. You wouldn't want to dip into that while you're here helping. You would simply be here on a mission of service. And so whatever happens, it's never about you. It's never about karma. It's truly not about anything you've done right or wrong. It's all about, I need to have this experience. For example, there are people who grew up in very difficult circumstances of abuse. And in the records, they're told, this was not why did I choose this? And the answer is, it has nothing to do with you're having a debt or needing to have this experience because you did it to somebody else. You chose to have this experience so that you could be of service to others in that same field, so that you would know what they'd been through, and you would show hope that you could get through it and come out the other side.
So then karma is not about debt. Karma is about the experience that you're
Well,
meant to have. Like, is that, I don't like, there's so many definitions of karma, Maureen, that it gets really confusing. What is karma?
well, first of all, I'll start out by saying that karma is an old system and there is no more karma at this time. So whatever a person is experiencing, they're attracting it to themselves so that they can heal it and fix it. People have had experiences in their life that they think they were the victim, but in fact, they wanted to heal something that happened earlier in childhood. And so they choose to have that experience. But there is no more karma. You and I are not bound or burdened by the mistakes we made in our youth. We're not bound or burdened by the mistakes we made as young mothers. And that's huge to know that, that stuff's dealt with. And anybody who's carrying guilt, there's a wonderful meditation called Release and Reinvent that helps you, recreate that scenario in a way that's positive. So karma itself is an old system that was created for people to understand the system of experiences. And that if I commit a murder in this lifetime, that I might want to be the victim in the next lifetime, so I can know what it felt like to have that experience. And to understand that none of this is judged by Creator as right or wrong or good or bad. It's an experience. And it's a big challenge for people to grok this. But I'll say a couple of things about it that might help. One is, when we are in 5D, we really don't need karma anymore because we're not even going to think of something that's harmful or hurtful. Out of our mouth is going to come something that's appropriate or sweet or kind. And it doesn't mean we don't have free will. It just means that half of the choices that we have today are gone. It's like walking into your favorite grocery store and discovering that your favorite sneak treat isn't there anymore. And oh, by the way, you don't even miss it. You're not even looking for it. So that's one thing. The second thing is we separated from all that is. So if we're part of Source, we separated from all that is in order to expand Source, to have more experiences. Because if we're everything, there's nothing new. But if we pretend that we're separate from Source, then we can have experiences that are in a different boundary. And so we separate from that which is inseparable to expand the database, to expand experience. And finally, and this is the latest metaphor that has come through, if you're a fan of a sports game, basketball, soccer, football, whatever.
Go
And let's say
Bills. Sorry, I had to say that. Go Bills. It's for my Buffalo Bills fans.
And are they football or basketball?
They are football.
Okay. So you're watching a football game, but maybe it's not the Bills. Maybe they're not even playing. Maybe it's the playoffs, but it's another team before they get their chance. So you're watching both sides and you're saying, wow, that was a great pass. Oh, wow, that guy made a great touchdown. Oh, that was not cool. I saw that. So you can see all of it and enjoy the show without having a judgment that those guys are the good guys and those guys are the bad guys. And that's where we're moving to. We're moving to the place where we're able to observe this reality in a way that is without judgment. And as we do that, we're moving up to 5D. And the interesting thing is 5D is like being a teenager. Teenagers generally act out, but they often do things that are quite mature. And one day I was having a conversation with my mother about this very subject, and she said to me, honey, children don't grow up in a straight line. I said, what does that mean? And she said, well, when they do something really mature, they usually follow it with something stupid. And, take that into stride. And that's our transition to 5D. We are not going there and staying there. We're sliding up and down, up and down, up and down. And the trajectory is at an angle towards the 5D mastery. And each time we slide up into 5D, we might not notice, but we notice when we slide back down to 3D because it feels so wonky compared to the yummy experiences in 5D. And so each of us has our own I'll call it progress, that we take to be in a higher frame of experience.
I love it. So, the biggest question I think people will say, and I think you kind of answered it, was how do I get these signs from okay, so you kind of answered how you through your app you can learn about, like the seven archangels and why you might call in Archangel Michael. I remember there was a little prayer. Oh gosh, when you lost something, because I grew up Catholic as well. And when you lose something, you pray to Saint,
Francis, maybe St. Joseph,
I
trying to
can't
think.
remember, but
St. Chris-
sorry,
Christopher.
is it? I can't remember. I just know there was a
Yeah.
little prayer, and if you lost something, a piece of jewelry, something that meant a lot to you, you would say this prayer and you would find it, right? But it's like what you're saying, you're calling upon that angel for that purpose, and you're doing it with intent. So I guess the first step would be intent. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And sincerity, willingness to try, even if you're not a believer. You don't have to believe to get help. And, one of the things that you did ask me and I never answered was, uh, what is the difference between all these categories? And the angels are emissaries from God. And so the angels are primarily part of what I would call the miracle scene. And so
Mm.
when things are really scary or wonky, or, you really are stressing out, to ask for a miracle and then get to know your angels and ask specifically for something that um, you can that you need. Um, I remember my sister telling me that she had lost a favorite earring, and she'd been in a department store the day before trying on clothes, and the earring was very dear to her because it was sentimental. And she said, "Wait a minute, Maureen has all these angels. I'm just going to ask Maureen's jewelry angels to help me find this earring." And she had a pretty good idea that it had come off when she was taking clothes on and off. And she went out to her car in the parking garage, and it was next to her front tire.
Mm.
So, and I've had a lot of those kinds of things happen where there's no rational scientific explanation. There's no way that could have happened that way. And yet it does. So the angelic kingdom, because they're emissaries from God, what is their mission? To help you remember how much you are loved and to know that you are entitled to miracles.
Mm.
Because when we leave source, that whole big story about separating from that which is inseparable, we're all excited to go on these big adventures, to become a human and have these experiences. But once we're here, we miss God so much that the angels are to help us remember how much we are loved by source.
I love that. I mean that, that prayer that I was telling you about, I lost an earring actually, and I remembered exactly where I lost it. It was in my car. I did something and it flung off, and it was so weird because I searched high and low. I searched in every single corner, and then I said, you know what? I just got to relax. I just have to relax. And then I did that. I did say that prayer a number of times. I said, I'm not even going to go back to my car and search for it. The next morning, Maureen, there's no explanation for this either. Like, you just can't explain it. I went and looked exactly where I looked the night before, exact same spot. And there it was, right in front of my eyes. I'm like, it couldn't have just like I didn't drive the car and it would have shifted or moved. I closed the door and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to not look until tomorrow. And there it was, exactly where I looked. So how do you, like, how do you explain that?
I have an explanation.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, when we're stressed, we're in polarity. What if I've lost it? How do I get along without it? Whatever it is, okay? I need it. I want to have it. That's all polarity because we're creating the antithesis. What if I don't find it?
Mm,
But when you unhooked and settled down and moved into a place of harmony within you, then you were able to see it because it was in a higher dimension. So when it flipped off, it means that you were probably in fifth dimension. Maybe you were thinking something yummy. Maybe you were, contemplating a lovely experience while you're driving. You might have seen something beautiful and it put you in a bliss state. In that moment, when it flips off, you're in 5D. Now, when you're looking, you're in 3D. You can't see it. So in 5D, like Russian nesting dolls, you can see into 3D. But in 3D, you can't see up to 5D. So once you calm down, it was readily visible. Yeah, I had a friend who lost a beautiful ruby heirloom ring, and she'd worn it and thrown it in her dresser drawer when she got home. And the next morning, she said, I better put that away properly. Couldn't find it. Looked for 3 months and finally said, I guess it's lost. Next time she opened that drawer, it was right on top.
It's not a coincidence that there's a reason these things happen. Even prayer, Maureen, like, so prayer, meditation, I, I have my own views on this. I feel like, there's prayers of desperation and then there's prayers of, like you said, not that polarity where you just come to yourself and you say, whatever, whoever you're praying to, and you just ground. And I've had moments like that where I've seen things happen for the good in that situation. Yeah, I mean, okay, so maybe we should move on. We talked about angels. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add about angels because, a lot of people have heard about angel guides and spirit guides. So is that kind of within that group of angels?
Yes. And what I want to say about the angelic realm is angels are known throughout history. They are known in all the world's major religions. This is not just a singular phenomenon. It's known throughout history and it's known throughout the ages. And there's tons of depictions of angels with wings. What the angels tell me is that the wings help people understand how they can move from place to place. It doesn't mean that they're actually using the wings to fly or that they actually have real wings. It's more of a way to depict an understanding of the capacity. There's a lovely movie called City of Angels with Nicolas Cage, where he is an angel and he's given a job and he is on the earth and he interacts with this human and falls in love and asks to become a human. And it's pretty interesting what happens. So it'd be a fun watch to kind of get your arms around how things work because it's fairly accurate in the way it depicts what happens with an angel and what happens with humans. Now, because the angels are emissaries, that means that we can call them in droves. One time I was really, really struggling with depression and sadness, and I asked for a huge number of angels to assist me. And when they came in, boy, could you tell. So, what I want to say is our requests are limited by our imagination.
Mm.
So if you want to imagine one angel, go for it. If you want to imagine a house full of angels, that's even better. And once you understand that there are many, many angels throughout history, there's a wonderful book on angels, actually a couple of books, but this one by Gustav Davidson, A Dictionary of Angels. I keep at my desk.
Oh, I'm going to get
Right?
that, Maureen. I'm going to get it.
It's wonderful because a lot of times people will say, I was told that the angel that's here is Lephia, and I want to know uh, what that means. And so I can look it up. I don't always know. And sometimes the record keepers prefer that I pull something tangible rather than just pull a name out of a thin air or an explanation out of thin air. But it's pretty powerful um, to call an angel by name. And this is true in all creation. And then the other angel resource I have is Angels A to Z. And that also is quite interesting. So, for example, Archangel Michael is known in all 9 of the world major religions, not just Catholicism. He's known in the Muslim tradition, Hebrew tradition, and so on. So, you start putting all that together and you realize, oh, yeah, these guys really are emissaries from source. And then if we have time, I'd like to talk about the dragons.
Yes, yeah, of course we do. But I want to ask you another question about the angels. I'm just so fascinated with the angels. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I have read and seen that the more specific you get, the easier it is for, I guess, correct communication with your angels.
Right. Or
Does that
fulfillment.
like it can't be like, "Oh, tomorrow I want to have a great day." Okay. Like you know what I mean? Like you'll have a great day, but if you're having, say, serious financial issues, or if you're having issues in your marriage or health, to really hone in on the help that you are calling for.
Mhm. Yes, this is quite true. And it's a simple metaphor. You wouldn't go to the podiatrist if you have a back problem. You might go to a
True.
general GP to start with, but you're going to end up with a specialist. And the angels are specialists. They do have areas of expertise, and they will lend themselves to helping you. But when you call by name, and this is something that's very important, when we call by name anything, whether I call you Sandy or whether I call an Archangel Michael, saying the name creates resonance, and it calls them in. It causes them to show up. And it's no different than when you're at a party and someone else is talking to a friend and they say, "Oh yeah, Sandy's really got it down. I was asking her about blah blah blah." And the next thing you know, you're standing next to them and saying, "Did I hear my name? Did you mention me?" And why? Because you're drawn to hearing to someone saying your name. It's also a known fact in mysticism that when you have the name of something, whether it's an entity or an angel, you have power over.
I've heard that. I've been given advice that I, because I speak in a public space, in, on social media, it kind of opens you up. So you need to know how to protect yourself. You need to cleanse your energy, cleanse your aura, all of that. Like, I mean, I do some weird stuff that some things I just keep to myself because, like I said, I'm in this world of, I'm in the middle. And so there's a lot of things I feel like I need to do, and I feel I resonate with doing it because I feel almost like exposed. Just like what you said, when people know your name, people see your face, people can kind of tap into you. So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
These things are very important.
So how do we know if our angels are listening to us? How do we know? Things happen?
From my vantage point, they never don't know.
Mm.
Like a mom who isn't listening in on her children, but she knows. She knows when they've been sneaking a snack and aren't going to eat their dinner. She knows when they haven't done their homework, like that. On the other hand, if we are, this is very interesting, if we are demanding or expecting without asking, we won't get the kind of response we want. We are showing respect by asking and not expecting. And I'll tell you a funny story. I work with the elemental kingdom as well, the gnomes, the fairies, and the elves. These are the earth elementals. And I had a garden in the back of my house. It was all landscape, but I was traveling so much, it was getting loaded with quackgrass and, weeds and stuff. And I asked, I came out to my backyard and I was talking to the elementals and I said, this place looks terrible. Like you would talk to a teenager, your room looks terrible. I thought you guys were going to help me. And without even thinking, I then said, I really wish I could hear you. And that was the first time I heard them speak to me. And they said, no, you never asked us. And I said, yes, I did. When I did the bulbs and we put in the dolomite and I blessed the bulbs and we put in over 100 tulips. And this gnome said, oh no, you expected us to help you. Now, at that moment, I knew that this conversation in my head was not made up because I would never talk to myself that way. I swallowed hard and said, if I ask you, would you help me? And he said, if we help you, will you still come out here all the time? I then bought furniture for the back patio so that I could come out there all the time and take my meals and such. So there is a form of communication that can be developed. And in my case, it was spontaneous. And when I asked how that occurred, I was told that because I had been doing this chant called Mantras for Ascension, also on the app, every day for over a year, it opened up my channel to connect with the elemental kingdom.
Oh, we're gonna have to get into more. I can't not have the dragon conversation with you, but I feel like our conversations, like we're gonna have to record again on like fairies and gnomes. Really? Like, there's so much I don't know, but the dragons, I've heard you speak about the dragons a few times now. So maybe get into that because I know that's an important part of this conversation today.
Okay. So the dragons are fourth dimensional beings. They do have free will, even though they're elementals. They are not on I'll call it ascension trajectory like humans are. They were chased out of the reality by the church in a certain time period when the church was starting to modify the truth or modify the stories that people were hearing, modify the information in the Bible. And so the dragons were chased out because dragons are all about clarity. They're about not only telling the truth, but making way for the information to flow freely. And now that humanity is on a track to explore the true nature of humanity, the true nature of human life, they're back to help us find our way. And because they're back to help us find our way, they're actually good with directions. And that's why I call them in when I'm driving, but I also call them in when I'm writing. They are very good to connect you with the right book agent or the right book company if you're writing a book. And because they're all about clarity, they will help you see what you might not have seen otherwise. And that's what makes them so remarkable. Everybody can have a dragon or two or more. On the app, there's a meditation is called On Your Dragons. And we've had some pretty powerful experiences with people. So I think the dragons are really special. And they came in right around 2012 to help humanity as we segue into the next cycle so that we can see when we're being told the truth and when we're not. Unfortunately, in our current reality, we're being lied to a lot. And a lot is being exposed. And it's not my job to point to what that might be. My job is to have people get that connection so strong that they can feel and know what they need to know in a timely fashion. And the dragons will help you understand, because a lot of things that are being revealed today or will be revealed today might cause what I call cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is a term that means I can't wrap my brain around that idea. So, for example, if you never had any experience with people talking about ETs, and then suddenly there's an ET ship in your backyard and these friendly aliens get out, you might pass out because you'd be so out of sync with, your belief system didn't permit that to be true. So the angels can help us with the revelations that are coming and help us to begin to understand that the world we thought we were living in is not the world we live in. And a funny movie that kind of underscores this is a movie called The Gods Must Be Crazy. Have you ever seen this?
I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it, though.
It's quite remarkable. And it starts in a village in Africa, and somebody throws a Coke bottle out the window. And the whole thing is pretty interesting. How they, out the window of an airplane, I should say. They don't have Coke bottles in this village, so they don't know what it is. And that's why the movie's called The Gods Must Be Crazy, because they think the God sent this thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. So then angels, we would call our angels more for miracles, and there are specific angels to call upon. Dragons, more for clarity, information, to help you see what you might not see. So it's interesting. I'm starting a new podcast, by the way. It's called
A
Think About
second
It.
one or a replacement?
A second one. A second one.
Wow.
It's a short form because this is what I mean. Like, I'm gonna have to call upon my dragons because it's called Think About It. And the title is Think About It, What's Real in Wellness, because that's my area of interest that I've been working in for many, many years. And I'm seeing so many things, Maureen. And I'm like, people are more confused than ever. And so it's not me telling you how you must think. It's me just saying, hey, think about this. Think about it. Because if you're not in the industry, you might not think about it and it might not be in your best interest. So I feel like I'm going to need to channel my dragons.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I also think that the podcast is brilliant because you're absolutely right. Many people trust and have trusted the professionals because that's what we were taught to do. And we are now beginning to see that the professionals have been compromised, and not all on in a malicious way. Maybe they were given false information.
It's a little bit it's a very interesting time because honestly, before I never noticed it until last year, Maureen. Last year, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that felt icky. Like I could feel it and it felt icky. And I'm like, that's not right. Or that felt icky. And it wasn't what I would consider a trigger. You know how triggers are moments of self-reflection. It was more of a like an icky feeling. It just didn't feel right. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, people are volunteering to give me all this information. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? And it's not about tearing down, it's about building new, building more, I'm going to say enlightenment, building more integrity, authenticity. And it happens, I'm sure you see it, Maureen. It happens in the spiritual world. I mean, I've had people come and tell me some things that are really kind of sad because there's trust, like you said, and then all of a sudden that trust has been compromised. And it's like, how, a lot of people feel like they've been had.
Mhm. Mhm. It's
So,
true.
yeah,
It's tr- yeah, stepping up to own your power and your uh, responsibility is a big job. And so it's easy to trust someone that you think has already done the work.
yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I can't again. Oh my God, you know what? It's okay as long as you don't have another appointment. I just have to ask you another question. Um, animal or spirit animals, is this such a thing? Like,
Mhm.
and the reason I'm asking this is that for many years in our backyard, we had a cardinal couple. Maybe it wasn't the same couple. Who knows? Like, how would I identify that? And they came every year and they would build a nest. And sometimes the eggs would make it, sometimes they wouldn't because the raccoons, but they would come every spring. And they haven't come in a few years. And I feel like something's missing because I miss having these cardinals in my backyard. And I always feel like there's some sort of a messenger or something. Is that just crazy to think that, or does that make sense?
I don't think it's crazy. Wherever we live, we will attract the animals that have something important to show us or tell us. Um, so, as if you look up the meaning of cardinals, you might get some additional insights. And the fact that it was a cardinal couple and they built a family, um, to me, that's really a strong indication of their recognizing how safe it was in your backyard to have this uh, temporary home to raise their little bird family. Um, Many times people see a hawk or they'll see, some unusual bird, but native to the area they live in. And then they look it up and they discover what that messenger means. Um, it is also possible for animals to be the messenger of other information from outside of the animal kingdom. So we see that a little bit too. Animals do not have free will. Even if you think your cat is disobeying you, they don't have free will. They're just following their instincts. So they're not on the same kind of path we are.
Do you think that, because I know I've read this many times, people that we've lost on this plane in this life, could their spirit can come through an animal?
And it's
Yeah,
possible, but it's very unlikely
really?
because the vibration of an animal is not as evolved. So if a person has the ability to come back, they're not going to choose a lower vibration vehicle. You see?
Yeah, I do.
They're more
I do.
likely to share a body with another human than they are to move into an animal. There are a few exceptions. I had one person that I worked with that She had a large dog, and the dog would have been her son if she had had children, but she didn't. So it was very different kind of interaction with the dog. But most of the time, the animals are coming in from the animal kingdom, and they do have group souls. So they're part of a bigger system. There are also some animals that come back to the humans that they worked with. It's very curious, but there's now examples of people. Maybe they had a horse, and they now they have a dog, and the dog trots like a horse. Curious things like that helps you know that the spirit of the animal that you developed a relationship with could come back in a different kind of animal. And there's a number of cases like that. Animals definitely have consciousness, and they do have a desire to interact with humans. So there's a lot going on there. And the animal communication, the animal kingdom itself is evolving up. So the likelihood of communication between humans and animals is much higher today than it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, if you wanted to know what your cat thought about something, you'd have to hire an animal communicator. Nowadays, a lot of times you can just tune into the animal and you'll know what he wants or she wants.
So let's say I usually try and walk every single day, walk my dog in nature always without headphones always because I just want to be present. And so you're saying that it is possible that there's some sort of a message if, let's say, a group of cardinals all of a sudden flock right where I'm walking. Like that's not a normal thing to happen. Or if, you see a feather in a really odd place where you're like, because I always look for signs. Like, tell me a feather means something, Maureen, please. Because I always love to find feathers in an unusual place.
Well, first of all, a feather is a sign, and it could even be an angelic sign. Um, so I always take it as a confirmation of what is being thought about or discussed at the time.
Mm. Yeah.
Now, yeah. So that would underscore what you're saying, that you're getting feathers to confirm something, or to give you an atta girl, or to encourage you to have hope in a situation that may seem that it has no hope. Yeah,
Mm. I love that. Maybe we'll end there, just on hope. I like that.
sounds good.
But
And like to encourage our audience, make sure you ask for help. And if you don't believe this part of our podcast, then I put you to the challenge and ask for something that is specific, that's understandable to you. Doesn't have to be understandable to anybody else. Ask for a sign if the angels are real and see what happens.
and don't take it as just a mere coincidence. You have to believe.
Well, you don't, if you take it as a coincidence, then you got to do it again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And I'm going to say go to the App Store, download Illuminate. This is Maureen's app. That will get you to some of these meditations that we talked about. You'll have an understanding of the angels. And check out St. Germain Mystery School.com, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I will
Yeah, we'd
have the
love.
links.
Good.
Yeah, the links will be in the show notes. And anything else, Maureen, just to close off, maybe we're going to have to record again this year, a little later.
Mhm. Um, this year is going to be full of big changes for all of us. And what I can tell you is, when you're faced with a big change and you don't want to do it, that's okay. but then ask your angels and guides. Just say, look, I don't think I'm supposed to do this. I don't want to do it. But if I'm supposed to do it, give me a sign, make it easy for me to see. And a little trick that I do sometimes is when I really don't want to do it, but I think I'm supposed to, I'll ask the Ascended Master El Moria, who's on the ray of the will of God, would you put a boulder in my path if I'm not supposed to do this? That way I have a good excuse. If, some big boulder comes along, I can get through it.
Oh, thank you so much, Maureen. I love chatting with you, and I hope to talk to you again soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to share it with someone you know might benefit. And always remember, when you rate, review, subscribe, you help to support my content and help me to keep going and bringing these conversations to you each and every week. Join me next week for a new topic, new guest, new exciting conversations to help you live your best life.